Bob Tharratt is a local Walnut Creek resident who served our country during World War II in B-17 bombers over Europe. The Boeing manufactured B-17 was the main bomber used by the American Air Force in Europe during the bombing campaign against Nazi Germany. The B-17 crews flew thousands of missions over Germany and paid a high price for doing so. 46,500 servicemen were either killed or wounded while flying the planes. The bombing raids on Germany by the 8th Air Force and the British Royal Air Force's Bomber Command took the heart out of Germany's industrial production. By September 1944, Germany had lost 75% of its fuel production and over 20,000 German planes were destroyed. Over 12,000 B-17s were built to be used in the war. Bob Tharratt was one of nearly 250,000 Americans that experienced flying in them.
At 18, we all had to sign up for the draft. And at 18, I graduated from high school and decided that I would get into the Air Force. And so I went down and tried to enlist in the Air Force. And because I was born in England, they said that I wasn't a citizen. I claimed I was a citizen through my father, became a citizen in 1936, and all minor children would automatically become citizens of the United States. And they said, yes, that's true. But when you come of age, and at that time, 21 was coming of age, and I was only 18, so I couldn't make that determination. And they couldn't accept me. And I said, I want to get in the Air Force. And they said, well, the only way you can get to the Air Force is you've had to sign up for the draft. Go down to the draft board and tell them that on the next go, you want to go into the Air Force. And this, everybody said I was stupid doing it, but I went in to the draft board and said I'd like to be drafted on the next thing. And so consequently that was January, they called us up January of 43. And so then they put me into training, and I never did get into actual pilot training, which I wanted, because they always had me in a particular school for some different thing. Basic training, and then went through with basic training. They had me signed up for mechanic school down in Mississippi, and then when we got through with that, they had me signed up for special training on B-17s in Long Beach, California with Douglas Aircraft. And then by that time, they had me, after I finished there, they had me for gunnery school in Kingman, Arizona, and finished there and assigned to a crew, a bomber crew in Salt Lake City. 10 of us that picked the pilot and the co-pilot and so on and so forth, and just went by and picked up the names. Never really put anything together, just need a pilot, need a co-pilot, and so on down the line. And my training had been for engineer, top turret gunner engineer. And when they came, they just picked up my name and a few others, and we ended up 10 men. And when we got together as a crew in Ardmore, Oklahoma for overseas training on B-17s, it turned out that I was the littlest man on the crew. outside of the radio operator and the bombardier. And so consequently, the pilot said my job was ball turret gunner. And I said, no, I trained as the engineer, top turret gunner. He says, nobody else can get in the ball turret, you're the ball turret gunner. And so anyway, I decided that no sense in fighting City Hall. They wouldn't do anything about it anyway. So I accepted the fact. I didn't like it, but curled up in a fetal position, hanging out the bottom of an airplane when you're being shot at, no fun. So anyway, we got together as a crew and went to Ardmore, Oklahoma. We spent 3 months special training, night flying, and, all around the United States, different places we were assigned to go. And then in May of '44, we were ready to ship overseas. So we shipped overseas for England, the 8th Air Force. We got over there, they put us on a ship. We flew over the channel, and it looked like they had a road with ships going to and from Normandy, from England. It was absolutely fantastic. Then on the way back, we flew over Cherbourg. Cherbourg was still in German hands at that time, and the anti-aircraft fire put a hole in the airplane, and the hole in the airplane was in my ball turret gunner, in the piece of plastic right in the front, and it hit the plastic and blew all the glass into my face. And the waist gunner, when I came out of the ball turret, he said my face was just bloody and looked like I had lost my whole face. And but it was just from the blood of the little pieces that had ended up in my cheeks and in my eyes. So anyway, when we got back, put me in the hospital, and they picked out all the glass, and then went back to flying. After about 2 weeks, fortunately, no damage was done to the eyes, the eyeballs. But anyway, then we started flying again, and depending on the mission, whether it was long or short or dangerous, and how much beating we got. When we got back, we had to go through debriefing, and the first thing they did was hand us a shot of whiskey. Now, we'd had breakfast at 2 o'clock in the morning, and here it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we hadn't had anything to eat for that length of time. So anyway, when we got into debriefing, the man would say, the debriefer would, interrogator would want to know what it was like. Everybody would say, piece cake, piece cake. You know, I mean, the whiskey was working. But anyway, depending on the mission, I've seen a tail gunner take 2 and 3 shots, no problem, you know. And then after we went back to the, cleaned up and got rid of our, out of our flying clothes, and went back and had a few drinks at the bar before we had something to eat. You know, it was just, I mean, it was altogether different. And we were 18, 19, 20 years old. And drinking whiskey like that, you know, unfortunately, I got used to the point where if something was happening, you know, take a shot of whiskey. And I hate to say it, but I'm an alcoholic. I haven't had a drink in 36 years. But I know if I took a drink again, I wouldn't know when to stop. So anyway, that's altogether a different story. Our first pilot, Berryman, was in the hospital with pneumonia, and so they put another pilot in to fly us, and we flew on mission number 17 with this new pilot, and then we were going for the 18th mission, and as I say, the navigator would always have what they call hack time, and then that's when they would set, everybody would set their watch according to what the navigator had to say. And he got ready for hack time, and I said, well, I forgot my watch. And everybody on the crew said, well, go get it, good luck, go get it. The pilot says, we don't have time, we're ready to take off. Now, my dad gave me the watch because he wore it in World War I. It brought him luck, so he figured it'd bring me luck. So we took off on our 18th mission, September 10th, 1944, and we bombed the target. We had good results on the target bombing, and but unfortunately, we lost, from anti-aircraft fire, we lost 3 engines, and we had to bail out. So there again, when I came out of the ball turret, the top turret gunner said that he'd been injured and he couldn't get out of the turret, and so I said, well, I'll come and get you out. So I made my way out of the ball turret and through the radio room to the bomb bay, got to him. Just about the time I got to him, the bailout bell rang, and I didn't have my chute with me, but his chute was there. So I fastened his leg straps, and he'd had shrapnel go through his right arm, and so it was useless. He couldn't, and he wouldn't be able to fasten his straps. And so then I pinned his parachute on backwards so he could pull with his left hand, pushed him out of the airplane. And then I went back through the bomb bay, radio room, picked up my parachute, bailed out the back, just as I saw the pilot climbing out of his seat.
The Secretary of War desires me to express his deep regret that your son, Staff Sergeant Robert Tharratt, has been reported missing in action.
Picked up by Hitler Youth. Fortunately or unfortunately, I landed a quarter of a mile from Hitler Youth Camp and picked up by the little guys. I thought they were going to kill me, but they didn't. As you can see, the rest of us, the 8 of us, spent the night in the Nuremberg jail. Then the next day they sent us in to put us on a train, took us to Frankfurt for interrogation. And we were told just to give them name, rank, and serial number, which we did. And, but then the last day of the 6th day, the last day, the interrogator just reached around, pulled a book down. He says, well, he says, I have all the information you need. He gave me the names of all the officers on the 96 bomb group and the 338 squadron and so on and so forth. And so he was pretty accurate in the whole way. And then he said, why didn't you tell us you were born in England? And I said, no. Somebody's talked. So he started naming all these different things that, somebody had to say something. Well, it turns out that nobody talked. It was just that the Germans had this system where they pick up all the newspapers, and all the newspapers have a clip about little Charlie graduating from such and such a school, going here and there, and doing this in the military. And they would get all these things and just ship them back through Mexico to Germany on U-boats, and then they cut them all up, file them, and if anybody got shot down or they captured somebody, they'd get hold and say, "Do you have any information on Bobby Tharratt?" And next thing you know, they got all kinds of information on Bobby Tharratt because the newspapers have put it in there. After interrogation, they moved us up to Stalag Luft 4, up on the Baltic, and every morning the Germans would call us out to have roll call, and count off and so on, so make sure nobody escaped. And, but our barracks consisted of 24 men in bunks in each corner, 3 on top, 3 on the bottom, 3 on all 4 corners. So anyway, it was crowded. You either stood there, stayed in your bunk, or went outside, walked around the compound. And this was, well, the end of September. We were shot down the 10th, and it was probably a week or so later that they moved us to Stalag Luft 4. And come February 6th, they had told us that the Russians were coming in to our direction, the camp, so they were going to move us to another camp. And they were going to do that, we'd have to walk for 3 days. Well, the group that I was with, unfortunately, we ended up walking 86 days and over 600 miles. And, it was the dead of winter at the time, and at the time they said it was the coldest winter since the turn of the century. At the end, well, we'd walk from the Baltic, south of Berlin, just a little bit north of Leipzig. If you see a German map and see where that is, that's quite a distance. You know, it kind of curving, going zigzag different places, and so 600 miles is quite a bit. And we didn't get too much to eat, so the Red Cross parcels came in handy all the time. But no, it just, near the end, it was getting a little depressing, and we didn't know whether, from day to day, whether we'd live on or not. So, but the last day, we, through the underground, we knew that the American lines were just 15 miles west of where we were at the Elbe River. So the man of confidence told the German commandant that tomorrow morning we're going to the American lines. The commandant said, no. So next morning, got up, the man of confidence said, I don't know what's going to happen, but we're heading to the American lines. So, which we did. And the guards followed us where we went. Well, when we got to the Elbe River, they had a makeshift bridge going across. They probably knew that it was useless because the Russians were coming from one side and we were going to the American lines, and if they went with us, they wouldn't have to fight the Russians and they'd be captured by the Americans. And so they gave up to the Americans. Put most of us in the hospital, and I spent 3 weeks getting fattened up in the hospital in Halle, Germany. I figured I weighed about 165 when I was flying and when I was shot down. When I was liberated, I weighed 109. And they fattened us up and then shipped us to Camp Lucky Strike in France, waiting for transportation back to the States. I was discharged in 1945 from Santa Ana. 1946, I came up from Santa Monica, where we'd been living, and went to the University of California, Davis, and took animal husbandry with the intention of being a veterinary. And that didn't happen. So I went to work for Walsh and Farina Feed Company, and I was stationed in Contra Costa County. And that's when, in 1949, moved to Walnut Creek. And I've been here ever since.
During the war, Bob received several ribbons, certificates, and medals, including the Purple Heart, for suffering an injury in battle over Europe. After his discharge from the Air Force, Bob raised a family in Contra Costa County. On Memorial Day 2001, Bob received the prestigious Distinguished Flying Cross at Civic Park. Bob also helped in the development for the creation of the Walnut Creek Veterans Memorial in front of City Hall.